Hi, so today we are making gnocchi and I'm following grandma's recipe, an Italian grandma's recipe. So here I have potatoes and the trick is to not boil the potatoes. So I'm going to bake the potatoes and before baking you need to serrate the potatoes with a few stabs. Take out your quarantine frustration on it. It's so hot. You can take out your heat frustration in it. It's quite fun. Yeah, I think this is done. This is basically so that the air passes through the potatoes when they're baking. Also, well, I learned that you must not boil your potatoes because the water and flour equal to gluten later when you use flour in your in the recipe, so it just makes it all stretchy and tougher, and you want your gnocchi to be what do you say, for lack of better word, as soft as baby's bum. In a preheated oven, just let them stay in the middle rack. So I put the potatoes in the oven directly on the wire rack, mainly so that it cooks faster, because if you put it on a plate or a baking tray, the air gets trapped a little bit and it starts crispening only on the bottoms and things like that. So for even cooking, I just let them be as three potatoes on the rack. So as you can see, the potatoes are out of the oven and the skin is a little crispy. We'll just cut open the potatoes and let them cool. Now I'm going to peel all the potatoes with a fork away from the dry skin. I'm using a fork so that I don't have to use anything to grate my potato again. I need it to be a little mashed and as disintegrated as possible, and using a fork just makes it a lot easier. It's really hot, so be a little careful. Poke whatever parts that you find clumpy and kind of let them rest. Now my potatoes have cooled. I'm going to add about 1/3 cup of fine flour, because I don't have too much potato. 3 of my potatoes have been peeled and mashed up. And it's always good to gradually increase your flour content, because you never know when it becomes too doughy and then it will be very stretchy and kind of chewy once you cook it. Add a little salt. I've added about 1.5 teaspoons. Add freshly ground pepper to season it. Beat an egg in a bowl. Now I always like to do this step just before I need to add the egg, because in Bombay I feel the weather and all of it kind of makes it start looking funky, and then it just becomes like a clumpy mess. So beat your egg really well and then just pour it in and quickly start combining it, because you don't want it to lump up. Now usually you wait for your potatoes to completely cool down, because otherwise your eggs will start cooking in the potatoes and you don't want that. Keep mixing it. Add more flour if you feel it's too wet, like a consistency of tikki, because that's not what you want. You want it to be a dough. So keep adding a little by little by little, maybe 1 tablespoon at a time. When you keep mixing it, you'll know exactly when it's dough. So you can give the scraper a rest and start using your hands. Keep adding little flour at a time. Keep checking the consistency. You don't want it to be a wet dough. Again, I feel like maybe my wooden board was keeping it moist, so I switched to my tin plate, and I feel like now my dough is coming together. Now my dough has come together, so I'm going to stop kneading it because that means I will activate the gluten. So I'm just going to let it rest and cover it so it doesn't dry out. So I've covered my dough first things first, because as you work piece by piece, you don't want your dough to dry out. Cut out a small piece, flour your board, and slowly work your way into rolling it out with both your hands. At this point, your dough needs to be really malleable. If it's not and it starts breaking, you need to go back a step, add some more flour, and knead it again. What I'm doing here is running a little test batch, cutting up this rolled out dough into small bits, which I will shape. So my gnocchi needs to be soft, and it also needs to be tasty and tender when it comes out. Instead of putting all the effort in vain in case something goes wrong, it's always better to have a little trial batch. Now here I'm struggling with shaping my gnocchi, so I start using the fork and press it away from the gnocchi so it rolls out. Make sure to cut your gnocchi really thin because it's going to increase in size when it cooks in the water. So I continue to roll out my dough, and I like to work with all the rolled out bits first and then cut them all together. And once they're floured, it's not going to stick to each other. So just make sure when you roll them out that they're all the same diameter. Consistency is key while rolling out your gnocchi, so that you have the exact same size and shape on your fork. At this point, I've really given up using the fork, so I devised my own technique, which is press and roll away from the dough. So it forms these little C shapes and will hold in all the sauce when you're cooking it. Also at this point, you need to start your water bath for the gnocchi. So just take a big pot of water and season it with some salt and a little bit of pepper. And let it keep boiling until you're ready to push the gnocchi for cooking. So here it is. Press and roll away. This C-type jacket shape that you're going to form is going to help hold the sauce in and flavor the gnocchi while eating. Put the gnocchi in your hot water, and once it floats up, pull it out, it's ready. My vegetarian version is white sauce with sauteed vegetables and gnocchi. I use the starch water to add body to the gravy. The non-veg version has prawns with pesto with a little bit of white sauce and starch water for body. I've served it with focaccia bread. I hope you enjoy my recipe. Please like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel.